Hi. Welcome to Confluence 2017. I'm sorry that I did not end up speaking here last year. I had a baby. He was early. I was in the hospital like, dear Matt, guess what I did today? And so yeah, I was not here last year, but I heard it was great. I'm Ruth Burr Reedy. I am the Director of Strategy at Upbuild. We're a boutique agency specializing in technical SEO, advanced web analytics, and conversion rate optimization. Damon gave a shout out to Mike Arneson, our CEO and founder, earlier. We're doing stuff with Google Tag Manager that basically no one else is doing, NBD. But today, we're going to talk about technical SEO. We're going to talk about why it is more important than ever to be technical, and then we're going to talk about what technical SEO is and how to know if you're doing it well. And we're going to talk about what it means to invest in technical SEO long term. So it is easier than ever to build a website. The barrier to entry to actually create a website has gone way, 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 way down. There are all of these great CMS providers now like Squarespace and Wix. And if you look at the marketing that they're doing, it's all like, look like an expert. Everything you need, no design skills needed, build it in under an hour. It's easy to use, do it yourself, no tech skills needed. You no longer need to know how to code to build a website. If you listen to podcasts, you've heard ads for Squarespace, and they're always talking about drag and drop tools. This is exactly the kind of thing that you can do. It's really easy now. And at the same time, search engines are getting better and better at crawling websites. So it used to be that you had to take in a lot of consideration in terms of how your website was built, because there were things that search engines could not do well. A big one was JavaScript. Historically, search engines have had a hard time crawling and executing JavaScript. They're still not perfect at it, but they're getting better and better. So at the same time that it's getting easier to create a website, search engines are getting better at understanding websites that aren't built perfectly. So I can totally see how in that environment you might ask, do we even need to be technical anymore? Like, do I need to think about the technical aspects of my website at all? It looks great. Google says they can crawl it just fine. I'm golden, right? The thing about SEO, if you're a business, if you have a business and you have a website and you're trying to drive business to and with your website, it's like accounting. You can probably, as a small business owner, learn enough about accounting to run your own business for a while. And it's the same with SEO. You probably learn enough about SEO to run your own business and your own business website for a while. But eventually you're going to have to bring in a professional. Your website is going to get big enough, your business is going to get big enough, you need a professional accountant so you don't get audited, you don't run out of money. You're going to need a professional SEO to make sure that your website actually has the foundation it needs to support the business that you want to drive long term. And similar to accounting, as a business owner, it behooves you to know enough about SEO to understand basically what's going on with your business. Because if you want to do business on the web, organic search engine traffic is going to be an unignorable part of that and an unignorable revenue stream. Certainly to the points that everybody's been making so far at the conference, if you're thinking about a multi-channel strategy, organic search is a huge part of that, especially as you think about building your brand. So yeah, you do need to know about technical SEO. And you might say, oh, Google can figure it out. Google says they can figure it out. They can figure out whatever I do. I'll just put it on there and I'll rely on them. You know, they're smart. They're super technical. They've got all the tools. But Google doesn't care about you. I'm sorry, but Google doesn't care about you. Google doesn't care about your business. If you're a big enough brand that you feel like you're the answer to a question, if you're Amazon, if you're Wikipedia, if you're Macy's, you can get away with a lot. But most of us aren't that big a brand, and Google doesn't actually care if your business is successful driving organic search traffic to it. All Google cares about is, can they present somebody with a good answer to a query? And if you can't demonstrate to Google that your site has a good answer to the query, you don't care. Google won't rank you. You need to be doing this for yourself. Don't rely on a third party for something that's such a core part of your business. Websites are getting different. So websites now don't always necessarily need to be on the web. Here's an example of Pokedex.org, which is a progressive web application. We're going to talk more about that later. Progressive web applications are a new form of site that actually have a lot of features that are like an app that you can use online and offline. So the line between the website and app is getting blurrier and blurrier. At the same time, there are a ton of single page websites. So Twitter is a great example. Almost everything that happens on Twitter happens at twitter.com. But if you've used twitter.com, you know that there's a hugely robust amount of resources. So more and more content on the web is becoming somewhat divorced from both connectivity and URLs. And pieces of content on the web are being surfaced up and crawled by search engines in new and exciting ways. You need to be on this. Search itself is changing. We've talked a lot about this in this conference. Scott yesterday talked about this a lot. Search is no longer something that's just happening on a desktop or on a phone. It's not even something that's just happening on desktops, phones, and smartwatches. Search is happening with voice. Search is happening on connected devices. Search is happening offline and online. It's everywhere. And if you're only thinking about SEO in terms of your performance in the desktop search engine rankings, you're not thinking about the future of your website. And yeah, content is really important. Content is the cornerstone of what you're doing. You have to have content, but it doesn't matter how great your content is if no one can find it. It doesn't matter how great your content is if no one can see it. You can't just have content. So technical SEO, you can't just have content. You have to find a way to surface it up to users, to surface it up to search engines in ways that are digestible for the modern era. And you might say, oh, but my CMS already, my CMS already does SEO. Wix talks about this a lot, so does Squarespace. Like, oh, we have built-in SEO features. You just put in your stuff in here and we'll take care of the rest. So great, right, that's handled. I don't have to do anything about that because I'm already using an SEO-friendly content management system. Not exactly. So content management systems are getting a lot better at providing a lot of that SEO functionality for you, but most of what they're looking at there is on-page SEO. It's things like title tags, it's things like how frequently you're using your keywords, it's got some metadata and things like that. All of that is on-page SEO. On-page SEO is really important. It's a huge part of what's going to drive your performance in search engines, but it's like the furniture and the drapes and the carpet in your house. Without the furniture and drapes and the carpet in your house is not going to be very enjoyable to be in, and people probably aren't going to want to come over. But if you have a really nice carpet and furniture and drapes in a house that is rotting and falling down and unsafe to be in, or if you put a whole bunch of furniture into a house and then never tell anybody where it is, you are also not going to have a very successful or popular party. So when we think about technical SEO, we're talking about the foundational elements of your website that make it crawlable and discoverable by search engines. Underneath your content, what is the base layer that all of your branding and your content sits on top of? And is that something that search engines can find? Is that something that search engines can understand it? And is that put together in ways that will help your website come up in the modern definition of a search? In the end, technical SEO is about future-proofing your website. So when we talk about technical SEO today, what we're going to be talking about is what are things that you can do now to make your website as much as you can available to future technologies. If you're just thinking about today, that's already too late. I want you guys to be thinking about your websites in terms of what's going to be happening in 2020. What's the next 3 years, the next 5 years? What is that going to look like? How can I set up my website now to be successful for a future that relies less on URLs, less on web interfaces, and more on voice and natural conversation and extractable pieces of data and crawlability? How does my website do that? That's what I really want for you guys, is to be making changes to your site now that will help you in the future. Okay, great, awesome, sold. So what is technical SEO then? How are we going to do it? Technical SEO can be thought of in 3 main categories. And this, for the purposes of our conversation today, I'm going to be breaking them up into 3 main categories. Performance, which is how well your site performs on the web, how easy it is for people to interact with it, things like that. Crawlability, Once a search engine bot gets to your website, how easy is it for it to move from page to page and resource to resource and understand what that is happening and what those resources are. And then indexation, which is once a search engine finds and crawls your website, how much of that is actually being deemed valuable content by the search engine, and how is that being surfaced up in the search results. So we're going to talk about a lot of elements of technical SEO that I want you guys to go home and think about for your own websites, and I've coded them with these three little icons. So let's talk about performance first, because performance is the thing that your web developers should already be doing. If you have a dev, your site should already be performing as well as they can get it to do. This is the area where if you talk to your developers about it, they're going to have the most to say. And so one of the main aspects of performance when we talk about technical SEO is site speed. How fast does your site load? You know, what is the time between when a browser starts to access your site and when that page fully loads or loads enough to be usable? Site speed is only getting more important as the internet gets faster, the web gets faster, people's attention spans go down. This is even more true on mobile. People are getting more and more used to instant results. So you want to make your site as fast as possible. This has been a signal that Google has come out and said for years now that they're looking at as part of ranking sites. You know, they get a lot of usage data from people using Google Chrome. So they know a lot about how fast your site loads, and they're taking that into account because they don't want to send people to slow sites because people don't like it. So when you're looking at site speed, you can look at page speed in Google Analytics. This is the first place that you're going to go to see how fast is my website. Am I doing what I need to be doing? And a good page load time, I mean, the short answer is faster is better. If you can get your average page load time under 2 seconds, that's ideal. That's really what we're talking about. We want your site to be lightning fast. My clients, I often say, you know, if a more realistic, so you can see this is a screenshot from someone whose average page load time goes up to, 15 seconds. I want them to get down to 4 or 5 seconds. So if you're already well above 4 or 5 seconds, start with that as a realistic goal. Try to get your website, your average page load time, under 4 seconds. Another place that you're going to want to look is Page Speed Insights for Chrome, which is a plugin that you can just use. It's part of Chrome Developer Tools, which we'll touch more on. You can use Chrome Developer Tools to load any page, really, on the internet, and it will tell you the ways in which that page could be faster. So you can see here, I've done this for the Confluence homepage, and it's got a whole list of suggestions for improvement. So all this requires is Google Chrome, no other tool needed. You can access your site with Page Speed Insights and get some recommendations for how to make your pages faster. I also really like a tool called Pingdom. Pingdom will go ahead and grade your overall load time and give you a snapshot of some of the things that are contributing to a longer load time, and also show you how you perform compared to the rest of the web. So the Confluence homepage, they got a C. It's faster than about 49% of tested sites. So it's it's a good middle of the road page load time. 3.26 seconds, good middle of the road page speed. Could be faster, obvi, but it's doing okay. So Pingdom is another tool you can use. I also really like webpagetest.org. The nice thing about webpagetest.org is you can view how fast your site loads on different browsers and from different locations. So they'll load it on different browsers and from different server locations across the country. So you can see, okay, not just at home with my super fast fiber internet, how fast does it load there, but what about somebody who's using mobile? What about somebody who's using a mobile device that's a little bit older? Maybe they're not on the LTE network, maybe they're on the 4G network. Using webpagetest.org, you can start to see some of that data for how you're performing for people who aren't set up for a site to be fast, based on their device. Those people who are using a slower internet connection, it's even more important to them that your site be fast. It'll also give you a snapshot of the waterfall, which is the order in which the resources on your page load and how fast they take. So you can start looking and seeing, okay, what are the resources that are taking a huge amount of time to load? Do I need those on the page? Can I load them later? How can I make my page faster by moving these resources around? So again, a free tool. When we're thinking about performance, one of the main contributors to bogging down on this low of performance is what we call code bloat. The older a site is and the bigger a site is, the more chance there is that there's unused code on your site. People come, people leave, people add stuff, it goes away. You start a new retargeting program and you add their tracking pixel to your site. And you stop using the targeting program, but you never take the tracking pixel off their site. I can't tell you how many websites I've seen that are using retargeting pixels for tools that they have not used in so long that no one who works there can remember what that tool is or what it did. This is exactly the kind of thing that can slow down your page load time. I've linked here to a really great piece recently by a guy named Ben Regenspan on Free Code Camp called Why Facebook Like Buttons Account for 16% of an Average Website's Code. Every single third-party widget that you add to your website might only increase your page speed a little bit, but that adds up. And every time you add something that increases your page load time, which anytime you're loading something from a third party, that's going to increase your page load time because your site has to go and get that and bring it back. That's going to impact your page speed. So I want you guys to be ruthless when you think about the third-party resources that you're loading on your site. And I want you to take a look at your code and see where are the places where I'm going to take stuff out, make it lean, make it mean. And hey, guess what? Chrome Developer Tools can help you with that as well. In Chrome Developer Tools, you can run a report that will show you the unused CSS and JavaScript on your website. Where are the things on your page that are in the code but that don't actually do anything? Here's a bunch for the Confluence website. You guys are over-reliant on Google Maps and APIs, and if you took that out, your page would be faster, and you're clearly not using it, so you don't need it. Hashtag just saying. Google is so invested in sites loading as fast as possible that they have started using what's called accelerated mobile pages. And you've probably seen this on the net if you're browsing the mobile web. Sometimes a result in the search, in the SERPs in Google will have a little decal that says AMP. It's an accelerated mobile page. And then when you click on that result, instead of actually taking you to the main website, it will load a version of the page that from a code perspective is stripped down. And if you need to, you can go to the full version of the page. So what AMP pages are, it's a set of HTML tags that Google has provided that basically allow you to load a lighter, cleaner, faster version of your page. And they're using this more and more in mobile. And what this means is that Google doesn't trust you to make your sites fast, but Google can't wait anymore for you to catch up. Google needs sites to be fast now because people are using the mobile web now. And so they're like, ugh, fine, if you're not gonna do it, here's some stuff where you can kind of jury-rig together. I mean, it can be really nice and smooth and sophisticated, but it's still like, here's some tools. If you're not gonna make your site fast, we'll just do it for you. And my prediction with AMP is that AMP is not forever. I think it's incredibly likely that at some point Google will have what it needs to serve pages on the web quickly without using AMP, and at that point it will probably deprecate its use of it. However, right now, if you can't make your site faster, implementing accelerated mobile pages is a way to kind of get people loading your pages faster, and Google likes to see that. But in the long run, I don't want you to just implement AMP and be like, mobile is handled. I want you to do everything you can to make the performance of your website as sleek and fast and quick and slick as possible. And what you're doing there is what we talked about. You're future-proofing. The day that AMP goes away in Google, you will already have a beautiful website that still loads very quickly in mobile, and that's going to give you a leg up on people who implemented AMP and called it a day. Quick plug for Make Fast Sites, makefastsites.com. It is not a pretty website, but it's very fast. If you would like to really dig into not all, but many, many, many different ways that you can make your site faster, I recommend checking out makefastsites.com. And it goes into all kinds of ways that you can scrape. Even if you're just scraping like a couple milliseconds off of your page load time, do enough of those things and that'll add up. And again, you're lean, you're mean, you're clean, you're fast. That's what we want. Let's talk about responsive design since we're talking about performance. Responsive design, most of you probably know about it by now, is the idea that you're creating one web resource that is viewable and experienceable and has a nice experience on basically any size browser window. So whether that's a desktop or a laptop or a tablet or a phablet or a phone, and now even a smartwatch or a smart device. You need to be thinking about the ways in which you're serving up resources for different devices. Don't just say like, oh, okay, now I've sized everything to the viewport, it's 100% of the viewport. There's more to responsive design than that. Take a look at how your web experience actually looks on these different devices. Is it usable? Look into the data. Are there devices where when people load your site, they don't know what to do? They bounce, they click search, they click about, they don't know what to do next. What about your design is not giving them what they need? And think about that. And think about responsive design as devices get smaller and bigger. Screens get smaller, they get bigger. The best way to make sure that people are having a positive experience, regardless of how they choose to encounter your website, is to make your site as responsive as possible. Okay, so that's kind of our main performance issues. Now let's move into crawlability. And crawlability and indexation are really closely related, because if Google can't crawl your site, they can't put things in the index. When we think about crawling, I like to think about it in terms of crawl budget. Crawl budget is a term that Google uses that basically means how many resources are we prepared to devote to crawling your site. And once they've devoted all of those resources that they want to devote to crawling your site, they're not going to crawl the rest of it, even if there's more website to crawl. If your site is inefficient for them to crawl, crawling is data. Data costs money. There is, it's a small but a tangible cost to crawling a website that's inefficient. And if that's not a good use of Google's resources, again, they don't care. They don't care about you. They'll just crawl your site less. They'll crawl it less often, which we don't want. We want our site to be as fresh in the search as possible, because if we make changes to our site, we want Google to find those as quickly as possible. And we want Google to crawl our entire site so that they can index as close to our entire site as possible. So let's talk about some things that can negatively impact the crawl budget, the amount of time that Google and resources that Google is willing to spend crawling your site. And most of these have to do with adding a whole bunch of low-value pages to your site. Another thing that you want to look at when you're looking at crawlability and indexation is what percent of the pages on your site are being indexed. So here's an example you can look in Google Search Console. Your sitemap has submitted 1,400 URLs, but only 962 are indexed. Okay, what happened to that other, 400 odd URLs? Like, where did those go? Do we care that they're not indexed? That's a clue. Look at what percent of your URLs are showing up in the index. It's important to note that Google Search Console's data here is not perfect, but it is directional, right? So if you see that there's a big difference between how many URLs you're submitting and how many Google is saying it's indexing, you want to look at that. You can also perform what's called a site colon search, where you search site colon and then your website, and that'll show you approximately how many pages from that site Google has in its index. You can see for Confluence Conference, there's about 357 results. I think that's probably about right, considering the size of the Confluence website and how many years it's had a blog. That seems right. So if you look at that number and you're like, that's about how many pages I would expect to see, you're probably okay. If not, that's a clue that your crawlability is not perfect. So here's a page from Macy's.com, which is a hot mess from a technical SEO perspective. Macy's.com, this is their women's dresses page. And you can look at dresses and you can filter and sort by a variety of factors. And this is one of the top ways that sites, especially e-commerce sites that have anything approaching a large inventory, waste their crawl budget, is through facets, parameters, and session IDs. So you can see here that if I sort the dresses page by bestsellers, that generates one URL. And you can see that I've got one bestsellers and it's got my session ID. ID equals 5449, that's my session ID. If I sort that same page, it's the same page to me, it's the same content, by price low to high, it's now a new page. My highlighting got messed up on this because I think the font changed. A new page, it's a new URL. So to Google, these are two different pages, but they're the same page. And if you look at all of the items, like all of the different ways that you can look at this page, all the different sort options, you can change how many per page are shown, you can look at the pagination, you can do 4 columns versus 3 columns. Every single one of those things is generating a new URL for this page. So that's hundreds of URLs for what is functionally one page. This is a way that Google can crawl way down a rabbit hole of your site and spend, a huge amount of time and resources crawling, again, what is essentially one page. So this is a huge source of wasted crawl budget, and if it's something you're doing on your site, take a look at how you might be able to do that in a way that's more technically SEO friendly, because it is possible. Take a look at duplicate content. So, here's an example, HTTP versus HTTPS, www versus non-www. To me, I look at this and it's the same page, but to Google, this is 8 different pages. And this is another way you really want to lock down how you're displaying URLs to Google. You don't want Google to say, okay, because they can, don't get me wrong. If you do this, it's not the end of the world. Because Google can say, okay, based on a variety of other clues, I've decided that HTTPS www. Is the version of this page that I most care about. Again, you don't want a third party deciding that. You don't want Google deciding that for themselves. You want to decide that. You don't want Google's time getting wasted crawling these 8 versions of every single page on your site. You gotta lock that down. Errors are another huge waste of crawl budget. And you'll see errors like probably all at this point are familiar with 404 errors and looking them up in Search Console. Also take a look at soft 404s, which is where your website maybe doesn't return a status that says not found, but then when you actually get to the page, there's nothing on it. You take a look at your errors in Google Search Console. It's another place where Google will give up crawling your site if there are enough. Infinite spaces, the classic example of an infinite space is an event calendar. So many event calendar plugins do this. If you have a calendar, any kind of calendar on your site, check out and make sure that you're not creating infinite spaces. With this event calendar, I can keep clicking forward, day, week, month, year. I can click 100 years in the future, and there is a page on this website that is created for every single day of every single year for 100 years. That's a lot of pages. And this company doesn't have events scheduled 100 years into the future. That would be cool, but they don't. This is just blank page upon blank page upon blank page. This is exactly the kind of place where a crawler can get lost. It's exactly the kind of thing that you need to lock down. Low quality and spam content. This is a page that's supposed to be about Andrew Lang. It's mostly about ads. It's 2017. Get on my level. Stop spamming. So, okay, great. Let's assess crawlability. Let's take a look at actually how Google is crawling our site. First place you want to go, Search Console. Search Console's got a crawl section. Take a look. Look at how you're being crawled. Look at how many pages are being crawled every time Google crawls. Look at the errors that are being generated. See how Google's crawling your site. But Search Console data is not real. Oh, it's not real. Data in Google Search Console is kind of filtered through a lot of different realities, and often there are things that happen on your site that Google Search Console doesn't surface up, or that doesn't surface up correctly, for a lot of reasons. So if you really want to understand how Google is crawling your site, the best way to do that is to look at your server log files. Your server log files will tell you when Google's user agent hits your site, what exactly did it do, where exactly did it go, where did it get hung up, where did it stop, where did it lead. So Built Visible, they're an SEO agency out of England, have an awesome guide to log file analysis. If you really do want to see exactly how Google is crawling your site, I recommend checking out this resource. You can also use Screaming Frog or really any other crawler and use your own web spider, use your own crawler and see, okay, when I run another crawl with another tool on my site, what happens there? Where does that crawler go? Where does that crawler get hung up? Where are the places where, infinite pages and facets and parameters and things like that are bogging down a crawler? I love Screaming Frog. It's in SEO, every SEO's toolkit. It is really easy to just take a look and see, okay, what do my pages look like to a spider that's crawling them? More and more, though, Google's behavior and search engine behavior is looking less like a traditional spider and more like a headless browser. So basically, a headless browser is a browser that looks at your website and loads it as though it was into a browser, but without all of the user interaction elements. So it's just the data. If you really want to understand exactly what Google sees when they look at your website, take a look at your site with a headless browser. This one's called Phantom.js. It's at phantomjs.org. It's my favorite headless browser. And it'll give you a lot of information about when Google loads your page, what do they see, what don't they see. So check it out. Another thing that can really impact everything, performance, probability, and indexation, is information architecture. How are the pages on your site laid out? Do they make sense? If you enter your site on any page, what are the pages that that page is linked to? What are the pages that those pages link to? How well is it laid out? So invest some time in information architecture. This goes back to usability. If you're not already thinking about this, if you're not calling your product section products and instead are calling it something cute, no one knows what that is. If you call your blog like, stories from abroad, no one understands that that's a blog. So think about how you're laying out information on your site. Another thing that impacts crawlability and indexation is HTTPS. We've been telling you this for literally years at this point. You need to make your site secure if it's not already secure, especially if you are collecting any kind of data. If you have a lead form or a purchase option or a shopping cart, you especially need to make sure that your site is in HTTPS. And starting in October 2017, Chrome's going to start telling people that your site's not secure, warning them that your site's not secure when they try to enter data on your unsecure site. So just fix it now. Another huge impact to crawlability is internationalization. How many of you have or work on a site that has international versions or content in other languages? Yeah, just a few of you. If you do, you need to make sure that you're communicating to Google exactly what's going on there. If you have the same page in 5 different languages, use hreflang, which is a series of HTML tags, to tell Google this is the same page in 5 different languages. Here's this page in Dutch, here's this page in French, here's this page in Japanese. That way Google understands where your site is unique and where your site is duplicate. It will also allow you to correctly differentiate between different English language versions of your site, which is really useful. If you've got a Great Britain site and an America site and an Australia site and a Canada site, that content can become very close duplicates of each other, give or take a U or a Z here or there, and you need to make sure that you're communicating what the international versions of your pages are. Semantic markup is a set of tags that you can add that tells search engines in no uncertain terms exactly what a piece of data is. So this is an example of semantic markup on a recipe, and you can see that there are fields for the type, it's a recipe, for the name of the recipe, for an image of it, for a description, and then for each one of the ingredients. Instead of Google coming in and being like, okay, based on how this data is laid out, I'm guessing this is a recipe, you can say, this is a recipe. Here are the instructions, here are the ingredients, here's exactly what this is. And that helps Google crawl and index your content better, and also pull out the relevant pieces to surface up in ways beyond just in the search results, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. Okay, so those are some issues that are probably impacting the technical SEO of your website today. So let's start with the future. This is back to the future, right? So let's start with the future. Mobile-first indexing is something that Google announced a while ago, and it's unclear exactly when it's going to come. But basically what mobile-first indexing means is that going forward, the mobile version of your site is the canonical version of your site. It's the default version of your site as far as Google is concerned. At this point, more people use the web on mobile than do on desktop. So it makes sense that Google would be going this direction. What that means, so right now, as we are today, we've got desktop first indexing, where the desktop version of your site is the default version, and a lot of the signals from your desktop version will impact how your site displays in the mobile search results. Mobile first indexing is going to flip that. So instead, your mobile site is the default version of your site. They'll be looking at quality signals from your mobile site, using that to inform your search results on desktop and on other tools. So getting performance issues in hand now is the best way to get prepared for mobile first indexing. Everything you do should be focused on how your site appears on devices that aren't a desktop. But really what mobile first indexing means to me, and where I think the future of SEO is going, is device agnostic information, device portable information. So we're no longer just thinking about a web page as an entire page, as one discrete resource. How you need to start thinking about the resources that you're serving up on your site as discrete little pieces of information that can be pulled out. That's why semantic markup is so important, because it says, here's a piece of information, here's exactly what it is. And that allows Google to, or other search engines, to really easily pull out the pieces of information that are relevant. Because if you're on voice search, if you're on a smartwatch, if you're on your fridge, you don't necessarily need an entire web page worth of information. If you're asking like, hey Alexa, what time is the movie tonight? You don't want Alexa to read you the entire movie times page. You want Alexa to say, it's at 10:15. Making your data as extractable as possible and as portable as possible across devices, not just desktop and mobile, but smart devices, excuse me, really any web-enabled device, is the best way to future-proof your site and to make sure that your information is the information people get when they get information. In order to take a look at how you're doing on that today, check out your performance in featured snippets. You guys have probably all seen featured snippets in the search results. It's exactly what I'm talking about. It is Google taking a concrete, discrete piece of information out of your site and surfacing it up in the search results, because that's the piece of information that people need. And if people want to, they can click through and see the entire piece of information if they want more details. And featured snippets, I know a lot of people have been kind of leery of it, like, oh, if Google is pulling out my data and just surfacing it up, why would people come to my site at all? Couple things on that. One, we've seen over and over, we talked about this, James talked about this yesterday, in terms of PPC and SEO. The more places you appear on the search results page, whether that's ads, featured snippets, videos, images, organic search, every additional place your website appears boosts the click-through rate of every single piece of that information. So yeah, you should be pursuing featured snippets. It actually, in pretty much every test we've run, increases rather than decreases traffic to the actual site. Excuse me. But you also need to be thinking about featured snippets because there are questions that aren't easily answered. There are things that you can't just answer via a voice search. There are always going to be times when people are going to need to consume an entire web page worth of information, a deep, robust, complete resource that helps them achieve the task that they need to achieve. Having a featured snippet that leads people into a larger resource is a great way to build your brand, build trust, and draw people in. And it's a great cross-device strategy. You've got the small answer for the small devices and the big answer for the big devices. Machine learning is also becoming a lot more important, and it's not the Matrix, so settle down. It's not a robot overlord, it's not Skynet yet. What is instead is Google is starting to look at how people click through from search results and look at their behaviors. And the way that they're applying machine learning is to drive natural language. So we've talked a lot at Confluence about natural language processing. When somebody asks a question in a conversational manner, how does Google understand what they're asking? And a lot of what they're doing there is machine learning. They're seeing, okay, when somebody searches for something and we don't quite know what they mean, let's serve up a bunch of different results and see which one they click on. And over time, that's going to help them draw connections between semantically related terms and use natural language more effectively. So be thinking about the ways in which you are using natural language when you are when you're writing your copy and creating things on your website. Think about how you're incentivizing click-through rate. Yeah, that means title tags and description tags are still important because clicks through are still important, so you still have to do that. Think about user experience. And also you should be thinking about this because user experience is how people come to your website and then give you money. And that's important. Think about how people are using your site. Look at the data that we've talked about so much over the course of this conference and see where are people getting confused? Where do they fill out your form but they don't complete it? Where do they abandon your form? Where are they clicking around and they don't know what to do next? When they get to a bottom of a blog post, what happens then? Do they leave? Do they go deeper in the site? All of these things will help you understand how your users are using your website and help you make it better for them, make it easier for them. Great marketing feels like a service. And one way that you can perform this service for your users is to make their experience on your website as pleasant as possible. Progressive web apps, we talked about. This is the other thing that if you really want to get technical SEO, if you really want to learn about something, start learning about some of the new advances in JavaScript that are going on. React.js, AngularJS, there are some really cool things that you can do with JavaScript now. Google is not perfect at crawling them, and Google's getting better at crawling them all the time because they're incentivized to do so because progressive web apps and single page apps are really cool. So you want to look at whether or not you, for example, if you have any kind of thing where you're like, it would be really valuable for our customers to have an offline experience of our online experience, take a look at progressive web apps as a solution. Great, okay, I've sold you, right? Technical SEO, it's good. You need to do it if you want to make money 5 years from now. Awesome, let's do it. What does it look like for you, a business owner? For you, a marketing director? For you, a CMO? What does it look like to invest in technical SEO? It involves spending money. That's why I use the word invest. Invest in cross-device tracking, for the love of God. If there's one takeaway that pretty much every speaker at Confluence for the last 2 days has said, it's get better at tracking, get better at multi-channel tracking, multi-channel attribution, and start thinking about cross-device tracking. Google Analytics has some basic functionality about this using cookies. You can start to see same user, desktop, tablet, mobile. Look at how people are using your site across devices. Do they find you on mobile and then convert on desktop? Do they find you on desktop and then convert on mobile? Do they find you on their smartwatch and then convert on their fridge? What is that looking like? And the more robust you can get tracking individual user paths across devices, the more information you'll have about your customer's customer journey, which is another phrase you've heard a lot in the last 2 days. So start thinking about your customer journey, not just in terms of the funnel, but in terms of device to device to device. Same person has multiple internet devices. Where are they finding you? Where are they liking you? Where are they converting? Hire SEOs who speak developer. Yeah, content, again, it's really important. You probably won't have a successful party in an empty house. But if you're going to invest in technical SEO, make sure you're hiring SEOs who are conversant enough with the technical issues and the technical code aspects of crawlability, performance, indexation, to be able to talk to your devs about it. Because if they can't speak coherently and intelligently to your devs about it, your devs are gonna be like, well, this person doesn't know what they're talking about, so I'm not gonna do it. And they're not wrong. You need to hire SEOs who can code. You also need to hire developers who speak SEO. So when you're looking at hiring a vendor or hiring a new person, ask them about things like crawlability. Ask them about things like indexation. See what they say. Do they understand the factors that make a website easy to crawl, easy to index, easy to extract information from? Again, it's like accounting. You don't have to know everything about accounting to hire an accountant, but you need to know enough to ask the questions to know that they're not going to land you in, jail for tax evasion, for example. So make sure that you're hiring developers who understand why this is important. Hire designers who know user experience. You don't want your site to be a scavenger hunt. People aren't going to come to your website and be like, fun, a puzzle to solve. They're going to be like, where is the contact us page? So make sure you're hiring designers with a UX background. It's becoming more and more common with web design, but you don't just want your site to be pretty, you want your site to be useful. In fact, sometimes your site being useful means it's less pretty, but that's okay because you have more money, and that's better. If you're gonna learn something in order to keep an eye on your own website, technical SEO-wise, learn Chrome developer tools. It's a hugely robust tool set. It's all available to you right in the Chrome browser. Code School, which is one of my favorite places to send people to learn stuff about the web, has a great, really great Chrome developer tools course. It's not free, but it's really good. So if you do want to learn more about this, keep an eye on these things yourself. Chrome DevTools is a great way to start. And yeah, you need more than technical SEO. Again, you throw a party in an empty house, party's not going to be that fun. I get that. I understand. You still need to be investing in content. You still need to be investing in PR. You still need to be investing in all of these multi-channel strategies that people are talking about. And investing in technical SEO makes everything easier. If your site is already fast, if it's already clean, if it already loads well and gets crawled well, and is indexed perfectly and it has easily extractable pieces of information, that information that you've spent so much time and energy and effort making wonderful, all that wonderful content that you're creating, is so much easier to get it out there. And that's why it's important to think about technical SEO as an investment. It's something that sits underneath your entire marketing stack and boosts the effectiveness of everything that you do. Okay, so here's some homework for you to go home and do. Learn to use Chrome DevTools. Take a look at DevTools and look at the unused code on your site and just take it out. I mean, get your developers to take it out would probably be a better suggestion because they will know how to do that without breaking your website. Look in Google Search Console and check your crawl and your indexation. How we doing there? Make your site faster, do whatever you can to make your site faster, make it as fast as possible, be ruthless. Learn enough about user experience best practices that you can interview a designer and know whether or not they know what they're talking about. Pursue featured snippets. Take a look at the featured snippets that you're already getting. Take a look at how to mark up your data in order to get more. Start pursuing that aggressively because that is a short-term win that will also have long-term payoff. Implement semantic markup to that same end. And then the number one thing that you can do in order to invest in technical SEO long-term is to make sure that your developers, your designers, and your SEOs, whether those are vendors or employees or a combination of those things, are all on the same page about your site being super fast, performing well, crawlable, easy to use. Make sure that everyone understands why you're doing that and that that is the common goal. You pay them. They work for you. Make sure that they're working toward the goal of making your site as awesome as possible. If you have questions about this or about technical SEO in general, or want to talk about Google Tag Manager or anything else, holler at your girl. Again, I'm Ruth Burr Reedy from Upbuild. I'm at Ruth Burr on Twitter. If you have questions and you don't grab me later on today, you can always email me. It's ruth@upbuild.o. Boomer Sooner.
Thank you so much, Ruth.